Hello and welcome to Gal Friday's craft room tonight. Now, just looking around at the floor in here. I have more scrap paper on my floor. Goodness. So how's everybody doing tonight? I am exhausted tonight. Oh my goodness. What a day. We ended up cleaning out the gutters on the house today. I am pooped. I have to say, I am very tired tonight. All right, so we are going to play with the Textured Floral stamp set again. And I decided to create a card with multiple layers. Hey, Do. With our sentiment inside. And you can see I stamped off some flowers. They're very, very light. You can just about see them. And then I created this card right here, die cutting the flowers and some sprigs with some flowers on the inside. And then I create, oh, and I forgot to put the candy in. Shoots. It holds a Ferrero Rocher, I think that's how you say it. And it is a little box that actually opens just by hitting the two sides. All right, so it's a cute little box with designer series paper on the front and the back. And if I would have done this in basic white, I could have stamped the sentiment on this piece here instead of this little banner. So I'm hoping I cut out my designer series paper. Let me just check because, yeah, I did. Okay. It's just a tiny little piece. Is this the one? It is. So we've got that. I just want to make sure I have everything. Let me just for the heck of it. This is 2 by, nope, that's not the right one. Let me just, I don't think I cut out the paper for that. So let me just do that right now before we even get started so I don't have to interrupt the video. Ow. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we ended up cleaning gutters today, and I am so tired. Oh my goodness, it was just so rough. And usually today is mow the lawn day. Hey Paula, thank you. And we didn't even mow the lawn, and believe it or not, our neighbor mowed theirs today and came over and mowed ours too. It was so very nice of them. So that's one job we don't have to worry about this week. Before I forget, and I see that Paula shared, thank you so much, Paula. Karen Dixon, you are the winner for sharing last week's video. So I will get your thank you in the mail. While I'm thinking about it, I am going to just so I don't forget. I write out little cards to put in the packages so you know what the package is for, and so I know that I have to send it. All right, so let's start with this card here. This card looks so difficult, right? All these layers, but it really honestly isn't. And I'm using Orchid Oasis and Starry Night, 2 colors that I really haven't used very much this year. And we are going to start out with our basic card base, 8.5 by 5.5. And I scored it at 4 1/4. And we are going to use it in the landscape position. Okay. And of course, I'm going to layer it up. So I have a piece of Starry Sky, and this is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And you don't have to keep track. I'll have a PDF for you tomorrow. And then I have an additional layer of the Orchid Oasis, and this is 5 1/4 by 4. So what we can do before we even get started, let's adhere these layers together. I just want to make sure that they're cut good. Sometimes I miscut. That's why for Mystery Card Monday, I always tell you to have your trimmer on hand, because you just never know. I may have wrote a measurement down wrong, or thought it was one thing and we end up having to cut it a different way. So, all right, so there is our top layer. Oops. That's why I like using glue, because it gives me an extra couple of minutes to get that laid out. All right, so there is, hey Karen. Oh, serious storms. We're on a watch actually. So, hey Kathy. Yeah, you like my eyes. That was the first thing when I was born. The doctor said, "Oh my God, look at her eyes." Now today they're very tired eyes. That's all I can say. Okay, so for the basic white layer, this is actually 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap paper. Give me 1 second. If I can pull it out, I have a whole pile here, and I can't pull out one piece. And I'm just going to use a foam mat, because I'm not sure what I did with my silicone mat. It's here somewhere. And we're just going to stamp this piece, okay? And I'm going to just move over a little so I can grab a second piece of scrap paper, because most of these flowers, I should say all of these flowers, are stamped off, and I'll show you why. I used Orchid Oasis, and even though I'm going to take a spoon, okay, I've said this before, if you have a brand new stamp pad, and let me just grab the stamp so I can show you. Here's the flower that I used on the front of the card. If I just ink this, and I'll do it over here, and stamp it, it is very, very dark, okay? And I may do that on this card so it's nice and dark. But sometimes where this is a textured flower, if you just move your ink over, and I'm using a tiny little spoon, if you move your ink over and out of the way a little bit, so it's not such a juicy stamp pad, and you ink it up and stamp it, can you see the difference? And that's just by moving some of the ink away. You'll notice you can see the texture of the stamp much better in this one than in this one, okay? This is pretty solid. This one has some texture. So we'll use it now full strength, because I pulled away some of the ink. Oh, thank goodness, Karen. And since you're late, I just wanted to let you know, your name was chosen for sharing my video last week, so you will be getting Happy Mail. Okay. All right. So let's get this stamped up. Again, we're using Orchid Oasis. I'm going to just move this up a little bit. And we are just going to stamp this flower. And I'm turning it as I'm stamping so we don't get it in the same direction all over, right? And I just want to get this flower stamped on our layer. All right? Very easy. And you can actually do this with any stamp set. So now I have some bubble bath. I think I'm really liking the bubble bath. And I'm just going to use the smaller of the flower. And let's check it out. All right, I'm going to just move some of this ink away. You can really tell when you move the ink away on this stamp pad. Now we're going to stamp these pink flowers. Again, we're just going to stamp randomly, and I'm turning the stamp so the flowers aren't all facing the same direction. Let's put one here. We'll put one down here. And let's fit one here. All right, so you can fill it in as much as you want. And then we're going to take some Granny Apple Green. And this stamp, let me just get this stamp set. It's this one right here with the little dots, because I wanted to fill in some of this white space. I just want to see, did I stamp off? Yes, I did. So we're going to stamp off with the dots so it's not so bright. And again, we are just going to use this stamp, to fill in some of the white space. Let's turn this way. All right, okay. So now this layer is nice and stamped. Let me take this away so you can see it better. All right, very simple. Just stamping randomly. Yeah, it would be a pretty DSP, right? If you did it on a 12 by 12 and just randomly. Hey, Tracy. Oh my goodness, you have storms too. See, even last night there were lots of storms. And like I said, we are in a watch, but it is, because it's so hot today. It is stifling hot. And but now I'm looking out the window and I see a really nice breeze. It's probably a hot breeze. All right, so now that we have this layer stamped, I'm taking the layering stitched rectangles, and I know they are discontinued, but this one is about 3.5 by 2.25, and then I have the smaller one that is about 1 3/8 by 2 3/4. And we are going to lay these onto the front of the card. I know. We're going to cut this beautifully stamped piece of paper, but it will be worth it. All right, so I'm just going to stand up here so I can make sure they're straight. And let me just move this side up a little bit. So I just want to get, I'm just eyeballing these so they are on here pretty straight. All right. And then I like to take some washi tape and just tape them down so they stay in place. Now I'm going to run it through my cut and emboss machine. So give me 1 second. And I would suggest, even if you're using washi tape, to take it and stick it on your skin before you put it onto your layer. And I didn't do that, so hopefully it will not stick too much, because sometimes washi tape is really sticky and it will ruin your layer. But so far so good. All right, there we go. I had it attached to my hand, so it should be good. All right, so now, oh my goodness, look at our poor layer. All right, so now we have 3 pieces from our basic white. Yeah, I do too, Karen. This is a really pretty color. Now you want to make sure that you keep it so it still goes together. And then now we are going to layer this up. You can actually take our card base now, and this is going to go down on our card base. So let's just add some glue. Okay, and we're going to layer this down onto the front of our card, just like that. All right, so there is the start. Then we need a layer, and I know I have to trim this. Like I said, this is, oops, wrong side. This is 2 1/4 by 3 5/8. So I am going to cut this down. 2 1/4 by 3 5/8. That's what I said, right? So let me just 2 1/4 by 3 5/8. I have to write it down so I can remember. So I'm going to cut it 1/8 of an inch larger than the piece. Okay, 3 5/8. We want 3 3/4. So we want it about 1/8 of an inch larger, so it creates a frame. Now that we have our frame, we're going to add some glue to this piece. And adhere it down. Just going to lift it so I can move it. All right. And you want to try to get it as even as you can. So when you lay it onto the front of your card, it will go on, it'll be on there straight. I'm cutting the edges of my dimensionals so we have them. All right, so now this is going to go on to the front of the card. Now we want to remember to match up our flowers. So I have to actually turn this way, because here's the match to that flower. So you want the flowers to match, so we have a completed piece of basic white, just like we stamped it. All right, let's get these papers off. And we're going to try to match up the flowers to the piece as best we can. All right, because you want it to match up so it still looks like a continuous piece of designer series paper. All right, so there's your layer. Now we're going to grab this next layer. Let's measure it out. Whoops. This measures, it's a line below 1.5. 2 3/4. So we want 2 7/8. Let's see. 2 7/8. That's what I have. All right, this piece should fit. It's going to be a little bit. Okay, so here's our last piece. I thought I had to trim it, but I don't. We're going to lay this on this mat. Get it on here as straight as we can. All right. And again, it's upside down, so we're going to flip it because we want our flowers to match. And we're just going to turn it over again. Add our dimensionals. Whoops, didn't cut enough. There's one. Let's get one more. And now we can lay this onto the front. Again, matching up our flowers. And we want to cover that piece underneath. All right. And then now we have layers on the front of our card. All right, let's see where here they are. So I already cut out the flowers and the leaf. This is in Granny Apple Green. I wanted to save some time because I wasn't sure how much energy I was going to have tonight because I am whooped. All right, so we're just going to lay that down on the front of the card. And then I have 2 of the smaller flowers that I did in Bubble Bath. It's very, very light pink. We could use some rain again too, even though we had so much. But it's just so dry outside. And believe it or not, I didn't realize this little flower had a dye to it because it had slipped off and into the sleeve. And I fussy cut these. So we're just going to take this one and we're going to lay one right like that. And then I am going to pop up this other one. Oops. I think I went off the flower. Let me see. I did. Let me just trim that. Okay. And we have our dimensional on there. And we are going to put this one right next to it. All right. And then I'm just going to grab some Orchid Oasis metallic ribbon. And don't mind my hands. I actually had glue. I have ink all over today. I don't know what happened. When I was stamping, I ended up getting ink all over my nails, my fingers. It was just one of those messy, inky days. All right, so we're just going to cut our tails. Grab a glue dot. Which are melty tonight. And I am going to just lay it right there and add my ribbon. All right. So there is the front of our card. Yes, it's a little darker than what's on the screen. Just a little bit. It's almost like a powdery pink. It's very, very pretty. All right, so that is the outside. Jumping to the inside, I have Starry Sky, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and then I have 5 1/4 by 4 in the basic white. And I am going to stamp the sentiment in the center, and I am using Every Thought of You Makes Me Smile. And I'm going to use, oh, took it out of my box, my Starry Sky. So we're going to ink this up. It's upside down. I just want to make sure there's enough, and I'm going to, oops, I like to just move it down using the edge as a guide so I can try to get it on there straight, and that looks pretty good, I think. And then I did it again. I took the smaller of the flowers and I grabbed the bubble bath. Now the bubble bath is, you have to remember, is a little lighter because I moved the ink out of the way, okay? So I'll just do this one with on the edge. So I'm going to stamp one there, and then I'm going to stamp one here. All right, so you can see that is just a little bit darker, right? All right, let's move that out of the way. Let's get our seal. We're going to add some seal. It's warm in here tonight. And layer this down. It's actually balmy. That's what I would call tonight, balmy. And then we'll just lay this on the inside of our card. And there is our first card. So if you would like these make and takes this week, just place an order of $35 or more, and I'll send them to you as a thank you. All right? So there's card number 1. Card number 2, where did I put it? This one I'm going to have to, again, get up and do some cutting, okay? But I have everything for the card itself except the white layer done. So again, we're starting with Orchid Oasis, but this time it's 11 by 4 1/4, and I scored it at 5 1/2. Okay. And this time the layout is portrait. Let me just get the inside. That's the inside. And again, I'm going to add a layer of Orchid Oasis, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And we are going to actually pop that up, so I'm not going to do anything yet. And then I have my basic white layer. I am going to grab my foam mat again. I have a different foam mat because today I had Sheba in here with me, and she got a hold of my other mat and chewed the corner, so I had to cut it. So I grabbed this one tonight. I'm going to use this larger flower now, and I am again going to grab my Orchid Oasis and a piece of scrap. Okay, and all I'm going to do is ink up this big flower. I am going to stamp off, and I'm going to stamp a flower right here. Oops, that's all right. That's from my finger, see? And we're going to do the same thing again. This will be hidden, so I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to ink up again and stamp. And then we're going to stamp the flower again right there. All right, that's all I'm going to do. I did actually add the leaves to this layer. They're under this oval, so I'm not going to do it tonight. So now I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to grab my, here it is, Time Worn Type embossing folder, which is my favorite. And like I always say, where the logo is and this black line, that is the front of your embossing. Hey, Dawn, what stamp set did I use? The Textured Floral again. The same one I used the other day. This one right here. So this is the front of your embossing folder. So whatever you want, so if you want to emboss, this is the front of my card. This is the front of the embossing folder. So I'm going to lay this in here, front of my card to the front piece, lining it up on that line, and I'm just going to run it through really quickly. Okay, so now we have a really nice embossed layer. I had to retire my cut and emboss machine, plates. They were so bad. Oh my goodness. I threw them away. I should have saved them to show you what they looked like. What an embarrassment. So they went to heaven, and they went to crafting heaven. All right, so now that this is embossed, we're going to add some glue. We're going to add it to this layer. And like I said, you can ignore that little spot there because we're not going to see it. All right, so there's our layer. Let's grab some dimensionals. Gonna cut these up. Yep. So we're going to cut these. Whoops. We're going to add them to this back because we're going to pop this up onto the front of the card. So I made an appointment today for Sheba to have a consultation. We have to go to a specialty surgeon to have Sheba spayed. Our vet will not spay her, and none of the surgeons in the office will spay her because they consider her too high risk. So I called today, and we have an appointment in 2 weeks, so hopefully it all works out well. All right, so I die cut a scalloped oval in, excuse me, Starry Sky. I'm going to grab a drink while I'm yapping. And then a regular oval, and I know they're retired, but I love my ovals, in basic white. And then in this die set for the Textured Floral, there's this really pretty sprig, so I die cut it in Granny Apple Green. And then we have this one that I die cut in vellum. And then to save a little bit of time, I stamped my flowers and die cut them, and then I stamped and die cut my leaves. All right. The only thing I do want to do to these flowers here is grab my Starry Sky and the center to the flower. And I'm just gonna stamp the center of the flower. All right. So let's just move this over, pull our card in. Again, we're going to pop up this oval. I think I'm going to have to pull out some more dimensionals. I'm glad that sheet is gone. Oh, here we go. Is done. It's been hanging around for a while. So now we can use this one. All right, so we're just going to take these papers off. And we're going to grab our oval and we are going to sit it right in the center of our card. And let's see. Okay. So there is, and you can just see the flowers peeking through. Let's grab our other oval, our basic white oval. I'm going to grab that pad again. And I'm going to grab the birthday blooms for you and my Starry Sky. And we're going to ink up our sentiment. And we're going to stamp it right about there. Now we can pull in our card again. And I'm just going to put a little light layer so we don't see it through this basic white. And layer our sentiment onto the front of our card. All right. Easy peasy. All right, so now we're going to add out, first we're going to add our sprigs. And all I'm going to do is add a little bit of glue to this bottom piece here. And we're going to lay this down so pretty much so we don't cover our sentiment too much. Oh, where did that vellum piece go? I just had it. Oh, here it is. Right in front of me. And then we're going to do the same thing to the vellum. We're just going to add a little bit of glue down on these bottom pieces. Okay. And I just want to get this up a little bit higher than this one. Whoops. My finger's sticking. All right. So we have that one there. And then we are going to pop up. Oh. That's what I didn't do. That little centerpiece. Let me see. Do I have a piece of yellow here quick? Yep. Hold on one second. Let me just die cut this. Oh, there it is. The plates are so nice and clean without any marks that I can't even see them anymore. All right, so I used Daffodil Delight on this piece. This one I just grabbed. I had a piece of lemon lolly sitting there, so that's what I pulled. So we're just going to, whoops, add a little dot of glue, and we're going to just stick it right here on the front of our flower. All right, it's just a little lighter. We're going to just flip it over. As you can see, I was experimenting, trying to get the flowers to look right. And we're going to stick this right there. These smaller flowers, we're going to tuck under. So I'm just going to add some glue and tuck it under. Same thing on this side. And you can decide how you want your flowers. We're just going to tuck it under, just like that. And we're going to grab that ribbon. I'm just going to get a length of it. And I'm actually going to double it up, okay? And I'm just going, look at the ink on me. And I'm just going to make a double bow. Making sure I pull and have both layers together. And this ribbon is a little thin, so all right, there we go. So we just get that knot nice and tight in the center. Pull it off my fingers. And then we can cut our tails. Fix our little loops here. Grab a glue dot. And we're going to add that glue dot right there on the flower. All right, so there is the outside. Oh, I forgot to add the leaves. So again, I am just going to tuck them I really don't want it to, you know what? I'm going to cut this leaf off because it's in the, I keep hitting the dimensional. And then I'm going to add some glue here and tuck this one under here. Now I'm noticing that my flower is sitting on the front of the card. So I'm just going to take a dimensional and I'm going to lift this up. I'm just going to stick that dimensional under there so it holds that flower up. All right, so there is the front. Yeah, I know. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? My thumb. I have it on my arm. I have ink all over today. All right, so now for the inside of this card, I'm going to grab my layers. I'm afraid I'm going to get ink on my layers now. I should try to, let me see. I have a wipe here. Let me see if I can't get some of it off. Usually, I don't get this much on me, but today's been one of those days. I just don't want it to, I guess I got to use some soap and water. I just don't want it to get on my layer, you know. You know me and my basic whites. All right, so I'm going to pull this pad back in. And I'm going to pull in a piece of scrap and my small little flower and my Orchid Oasis. And I think I stamped off. I did. All right, so we're going to stamp off and put one flower here. Stamp off and put one flower here. Then I'm going to grab the leaf and my Granny Apple Green. Oh my goodness. I just got Gurney apple green on me. And we are going to add a couple leaves. So I'm just going to, I want to stamp off. So I'm going to add one here. I'm going to stamp off, and I'm going to add the other one right about here. Just to add a little bit of green to the inside of the card. Grab our base. So like I said, I will have a PDF for these cards. It's almost done. I thought I was going to be able to finish it today, but we came in from outside, and oh my goodness, I was just whooped. I'm going to just trim this side a little bit. Just a hair. And now we can add it to the inside of our card. So like I said, it's almost done. Alright, so there is our second card. Yes, it will. That's true. Hey, Nancy. Thank you so much. Now for the third project. Like I said, I forgot to put the candy in. I guess I was afraid I was going to eat it first. But it's a cute little, it's a square little bottom box that if you pinch it, it opens. All right. And it only uses a quarter of a sheet of cardstock. The only thing is, I did not score any of it so we could score it together. And I'm going to use my big scoreboard. Let me get my stylus out here. And so it uses a quarter of a sheet. So that means it's 5.5 by 4.5. 4.25. 5.5 by 4.25. Okay. So we're going to put the 4.25 edge up at the top. So you can see here, 4.25. And we are going to score this at 1.25. And we are going to score this at 3.5. So now you can see we have 3 sections. This section is a little smaller than this section. So we're going to turn it so the fatter section is at the top of our scoreboard. And this is the 5.5 inch side. And we're going to score it at 2.5 and 5. Okay, so you can see those score lines. Now what we're going to do is we're going to score at 1.25 inches, but we're only going to go down to this score line. Okay, right there. Can you see that? And then we are going to score it again at 3 3/4, but only to that first score line. So you can see now there's 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes and a rectangle. All right. So we're going to take that scoreboard away. I'm actually going to pull, we'll use the nicer piece of foam so you can see my score lines. Now we have to score our diagonals. So these score lines that we just did, going down to this first score line, we are going to now score some diagonal lines. So here's the line, the score line we did. We're going to line up our ruler at that dissecting point, and then we're going to line up our ruler at this bottom score line and the edge of our paper. Okay, So we're just going to line this up. Now you have to remember too, your stylus is a little large. So when you put your stylus there, make sure it's at that dissecting point and that it's going to hit at the edge of that paper. Okay, so we're just going to add our score line. So you can see that now. Yeah, it is though. It is 5¼ by 5.5 by 4¼ All right, so now we're going to score from that same point to the center score line. All right, so now we have a triangle. You see that triangle? And we're going to jump over to this second score line that we created. And we're going to do the same thing, only this dissecting point is going to go to the center again. Let me just line this up. And we're going to score. And then we're going to go to that dissecting center, and we're going to come down here to this corner. So in these squares, that's where we're putting our triangle. Okay, so there are our score lines. At this point in time, this is the bottom of the box. You could add a sentiment in here if you like, okay? But we are going to add our designer series paper. And how we're going to do this is, this measures 2¼ by 2. Let's take them out. And I have 2 of them. This is the 2¼ inch side. I'm just going to take my ruler and my pencil, and I'm just going to make a mark at 1 1/8 inch. So it's in the center. Now I'm going to take this scoreboard, and we did this the other day. We're going to line up this bottom right, okay? So we're going to lay it like this. This bottom right and that pencil mark in the groove of our trimmer. So you want to line it up so it's in there perfectly. Close it and cut. All right. We're going to do the same thing on the other corner. We're going to line up that corner, line up that mark. Make sure it's in there and cut. This piece we don't need. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to this piece here. I should have marked it before. Let's mark it at 1 1/8, right about there. And we're going to do the same exact thing to this piece, because we need 4 of these little triangles. Whoops. Want to keep it in there straight. All right, so there's 1. And then we're going to turn it. Now you're going to have to think about, if you have designer series paper that is directional, meaning there is an up and a down, you're going to have to think about that when cutting your little triangles. All right. So now that our triangles are cut, we are going to adhere them to our piece. So I'm just going to add some glue. And we're going to line it up into these little triangle sections. So we have 4 of these little sections. And we're doing this now because it's easier to put your designer series paper on first. It's much easier to add it when your paper is laying flat on your table than it is when it's a 3D object, right? So that's why we're adding our designer series paper now. One more section. And then also you can see that I did not fold or burnish anything yet, and I'll show you why. All right, so there is our piece with our designer series paper. Let me grab my scissors and my bone folder. So now what we're going to do is we are going to cut. And these little tiny small rectangles, we are going to cut them right out. So we're going to cut up on the score line. We're going to cut out this small little rectangle, and we're just going to angle this for our tab. Here's another little one up here. We're going to cut it down and cut it out. Now for up here, so it doesn't interfere with the flap of our box, we're going to angle it just so we try to match it to this line here. So I'm just going to cut it at a really deep angle. Okay? So it looks like it's finishing off this triangle. Now we need to cut our tabs, and I am going to cut it so we can get rid of that score line. So I'm just going to cut it a little to the left of that score line and a little bit to the right of that score line. So then we can just take these pieces right out. All right. Now we're going to hit this score line up here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to cut it to the right a little, to the left a little, and then pull that piece out. All right. Now that all our pieces are nope, it's the right size. It's just so it will not interfere with the top. So now we are going to fold and burnish all of our pieces. Let's get these 2 top pieces. Okay. And we can fold it in half. Now that we have all our slits, we can very easily fold on these diagonals without anything being in the way. Right? Makes it nice and simple. Let's fold this little piece over. So now you can see my cut lines up with this piece right here. We're going to add some glue. And you want that glue right to the edge. Let's get this spread out a little bit. And then we're just going to take this and fold it in half. Just like that. Let that dry. All right. Now that we have this piece here, you're just going to squeeze the bottom. And we're going to, let's see where our seam is. Right here. So this will be the back. and I am going to lay one of my squares in, and you just want to make sure that when you put it in, you keep it square. And we're going to add some glue, and then we're going to put this one in, and again, you want to keep it as square as you can. So make sure when you put your pieces down, they're pretty square. Add some glue. And now our next piece, I'm just going to make sure it's lined up and squared. And then our last piece. Again, we want to make sure it is square. Now that they're all glued, you can lay it down. Let's just poke this open. I'm going to take my bone folder, and I'm just going to rub the base of this so it's really stuck together. All right. And now here is our little tree box. See, it opens and closes just like that. And what I did was I stamped and die cut a leaf because it fits in here very nicely. And then I have another little flower. Whoops. I'm just going to grab my Starry Sky and that little centerpiece. Not sure what that's called on our flowers. And we're going to pop this up. Got the hiccups. Pop this up right here. And then I have a tiny little piece of basic white, a scrap. And we're going to use that Starry Sky again. And I'm going to stamp with a grateful heart. And we're just going to angle this like this. Cut that down. Add some glue. And we're going to tuck it. You can tuck it right under that leaf. So we have a cute little treat holder. I don't think it's going to stand up for me. Silly. And then we have our birthday card. And then we just have our layers. So if you like these cards tonight and would like the make and takes, spend $35 in my online store using the host code on the screen, and I will send these make and takes to you as a thank you. And just while I'm thinking about it, Karen, I mentioned it at the beginning, but you came in a little late. You won the sharing of my video last week, so you will be getting a package in the mail. So thank you, ladies. Share if you are on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button because it does help. And I will see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock for Fun Fold Friday. Have a great night. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow at 10. Bye-bye.